My name is George Wallace. I'm one of the original founders of the Charles City Times. During the next few minutes, I will speak to you about the origins of and purpose for publishing this newspaper. I will also briefly mention some of the major issues we addressed during its publication and the reason for its termination. Many of you probably have never heard of this newspaper. The Charles City Times was the first newspaper published for the county. It was conceived of by three young black residents, Kenneth Christian of District 3, George Wallace, the Speaker of District 2, and Renard Charity of District 1. The founders resided in every district of the county. As a result, interest in the paper was widespread. Evelyn Miles supported us throughout the publication cycles. Wilbert, David, and Grace Jones contributed to the fourth and fifth editions. Similarly, Grace, Judy, and Eugene Crump made important contributions to those editions. They were all residents of the county at that time. We, the founders of the paper, were around 22 years old in the summer of 1966 when we realized the need for a countywide platform to support the ongoing efforts of local leaders to promote the interests of black citizens. We met in a strategy session and determined that a countywide newspaper would be the quickest way to accomplish this objective. Because the paper was also intended to be a publication for the entire county, it would include all elements of a local newspaper: information, editorials, practical items, and entertainment pieces. We intended to attract readers by informing them of significant events in the county that could affect their daily lives, such as actions and decisions of the county government officials. In related editorials, we would try to shape public opinion. We, the founders, met to discuss the publication in the first weeks of June 1966 and issued the first edition on July 11, 1966. The most pressing issue at that time was the resistance of established politicians to fully integrate the county's public school system. The system had been established to serve the three community groups defined at that time as Negro, White, and Indian. Black leaders were concerned about token integration. Leaders like Richard Bowman and the NAACP were pressing for the complete integration by the consolidation of the school systems. We supported this cause by trying, through our editorials, to motivate black citizens to become more involved in the efforts to integrate the schools. We likewise supported the consolidated system. Several years later, in 1972, the schools were finally consolidated. To make sure the voices and concerns of blacks were heard, we also focused on increasing voter registration. We included editorials to emphasize its importance. In the first issue, we urged blacks to think as first-class citizens, to act as first-class citizens by registering to vote and by voting. We also encouraged blacks to run for and seek positions of leadership, both political and administrative, in the county government. We used our editorials to promote this idea. By 1972, several years later, a black majority had been elected to the Board of Supervisors. During the following years, blacks were increasingly elected and appointed to significant positions of responsibility in the county government. Another pressing issue at the time was transparency as it related to the activities of the county government. One of our efforts involved in getting the Board of Education to hold public meetings as required by law. By presenting the legal basis for our position, we reached an agreement with the board in January 1967 to open its meetings to the public. We also reported on and wrote editorials about other controversial issues, such as bringing industries to the county versus maintaining its rural character. In one case, the Board of Supervisors had requested a survey of Route 5 and surrounding property regarding the proposed development of Route 5 as a scenic byway. Some citizens believed that the county would benefit more if the surrounding property were developed as industrial sites. More jobs would be created and the tax revenue base would be increased. At that time, in our editorials, we opposed the scenic byway. However, today, because of the greater attention to environmental issues, we probably would express a more nuanced opinion. One result of publishing the paper was an enhancement of black pride. The paper was well received by blacks in the county as well as blacks with connections to the country who live elsewhere. One letter to the editors stated it may come as a surprise that your wonderful paper has traveled halfway around the world to end up here in Vietnam. The paper was designed to be published on a monthly basis. The first edition was published on July 11, 1966, and the last publication was on February 7, 1967. When we started the paper, we realized it would be difficult to continue the publications beyond a few months. At that time, we were in the process of completing our college education or starting our professional careers. In the fall of 1966, Kenneth Christian entered his senior year at Virginia State College, where he majored in business administration. Rena Charter, now Dr. Charter, began his postgraduate work, and I, having received my MBA degree from Columbia University, returned to New York to begin my career in accounting and finance. Even though the publication was, as expected, short-lived, we felt in the summer of 1966 the need to fight for the present civil rights issues of the times and refuse to remain silent in the face of injustice. The struggle continues today, most notably in the Black movement Black Lives Matter, and the struggle must continue until the battle for equal rights and justice is completely won.